What's going on, everyone? Scott here. Welcome back to the channel. So we are back for Survivor Season 48, Episode 5, and dare I say, a fairly emotional one, maybe one of the more emotional episodes that we've had in all 48 seasons of this show. And obviously last week had the tribe swap. Camilla and Kyle were able to pull off the blind side, sending Thomas home by pulling out the idol at Tribal Council. But before we hop into this week's episode, if you could, hit that like and subscribe button down there. We have more Survivor content on the channel, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video. So, back at the Green Tribe, Shaheen says, good play. I mean, you knew we had to do something, obviously, just trying to bury the hatchet. He's the one that didn't think Kyle had an idol. And Thomas was the one trying to vote Camilla and no more California Girls Alliance. Kyle says, that he was thinking about going with you guys, but saw someone had went through his bag and got, sketched out, and that's why he went the way he did, and everything went down at Tribal the way it did. But Kyle is trying to do damage control, and he says that he did have to use Camilla's extra vote, but it seems like Joe's struggling with it. Everyone else is like, let's go win a challenge. And then we are right into the reward challenge, a couple minutes into the episode, and the winning tribes go into the sanctuary, afternoon of pastries, donuts, ham and cheese croissants. Second tribe gets a smaller selection of those pastries back at camp. Purple tribe finishes first, green tribe finishes second. The orange tribe was way behind, but shout out to Mitch, keeping them in it and getting them to the end, giving them a shot there at the end. But Mary is excited about going to the sanctuary and says how they still have half of their fruit left from yesterday, which doesn't go over well, especially with Say. And she says, you should win with a little more tactfulness, but Mitch says afterwards, I don't know what Say was thinking. You can have an opinion and not say anything, so things seems to not be vibing so well currently. But back at the Orange Camp, Bianca's number one in Thomas going home, and now she has to use this time to form new connections. And a little tiff between Say and Chrissy when Say said she wanted to sit out the challenge because she's done every challenge. Chrissy's like, well, I've done every challenge too. And then Say grabbed a fruit as soon as she got back, which doesn't sit well with Chrissy, but I don't know. Mitch and Chrissy talk about getting Say out instead of Bianca. Mitch tells Bianca that they should work together and brings out getting out Say. And although Say has told Bianca she wants to work together, however, at the current time, Bianca doesn't have a vote. So that's kind of the issue here, especially when it's a 2-2-1. And she's the one in the middle. Say tells Cedric that Chrissy needs to go because she's mothering her, counting what she's eating, the fruit and everything. But we jump to the sanctuary. The Purple Tribe arrives at the sanctuary, and Charity gets her buttery croissant that she's been craving. David gets his milk that he loves so much. They talk about Say kind of coming at Mary, and Eva says that Charity comes off kind of fake to her and doesn't really trust her at this time. At the Green Tribe, they enjoy their pastries, smaller group of pastries, but obviously still gets the job done. Donuts, croissants, the whole works, and obviously in a 2-2 deadlock, but still spinning the narrative Kyle and Camilla are that they aren't close. And they were able to pull that off last night at Tribal Council, but they're able to bond, talking about how their families have gone through way worse than, they're going through in this game. Specifically, Shaheen and Camilla talk about how their dads, going through tough times overseas, coming over here in wartime, basically. And Joe says how his parents, got together during Jim Crow times and the struggles. Basically, the struggles that their parents have went through, real life struggles, and able to bond over that way harder and way more to go through than being in this game. Obviously, Survivor is very hard, but it doesn't compare to that real life stuff that their parents have went through, and really a bonding moment to relate and open up about the struggles that their parents have went through and really bonded them together, that the four of them really want to stick together. They don't want to vote any of them out, and the four of them want to kind of play the middle and run this game. And I think they have a shot if they can get through the next, challenge or two, however many, before we get to the merge. And we head to the immunity challenge, and everybody's in it at the end. At the table maze, Green finishes first, gets the first immunity of the season for the Green Tribe, and then it comes down to Eva with the fourth and final ball for Purple. She's starting to get a little frustrated. Joe was even encouraging her from the other tribe. Obviously, stepping back a couple episodes, Eva had revealed to Joe that she does have autism, and, she sometimes gets these episodes and gets overstimulated, and, so Joe is the only one in this game that knows this, but obviously him being on a different tribe, his tribe already won though. So he's kind of sitting there and kind of like trying to encourage her the best she can as she's getting a little frustrated. Her tribe is doing a good job, encouraging her as well, but obviously she doesn't know. She told Joe, what she needs in that situation. And Eva gets emotional and, obviously was frustrated, gets emotional, but she's able to lock in and pulls it out. And I, I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure a lot of people at home can say this. I know they were on the beach as well, tearing up at home. Definitely, the tears were definitely flowing. That is why you don't give up on this game, and this is what makes Survivor so incredible. And in my opinion, and probably a lot of other people's opinion, why this show has lasted as long as it has and is still going strong. It's still so popular. So many people still want to play it. Joe was able to go over after, give her a hug, help calm her down, and get her in the right headspace. And that was an incredible moment, and incredible that Jeff, allowed that, because he even said like afterwards he kind of talks about like, can we talk about what happened here at the end. And we usually like to keep tribes separate after an immunity challenge or a challenge in general, as Jeff says. But he's like, looks at the camera too, breaks the fourth wall, whatever, and is like, I felt that it was okay, and felt like everyone else here felt that it was okay to allow that to happen, for Joe to go over there. And asked afterwards to Joe, like, obviously this is kind of revealing a part of your game, clearly a relationship that you care about in Eva, and you're, revealing that to go and comfort her. And he's like, I'm going to be the man that I want my kids, watching at home, to be who I want them to be. And I would want someone to treat my daughter that way too. Eva then reveals to everyone that she has autism, and that, she was told when she was diagnosed that she would never be able to do all these things that she's done and accomplished in her life. And thanks everyone for allowing Joe to help and support her in this, as obviously she said that, she needed someone on the beach that she could trust, in case she gets into one of these episodes, like she said she got into here at that challenge. And thanks everyone for that. And Jeff gets emotional, saying like, there's a little girl or boy out there just like you. And you see it, like telling your parents like, hey, and being like inspired by Eva being so brave and confident to tell her story here. And he's like, I see it. That's why I love Survivor. And he says, who knows? You can both maybe blindsiding each other, basically. That's the beauty of Survivor. And just another shout out to Eva, because being able to be that vulnerable takes courage. It's, very inspiring, obviously, like Jeff said, to the little girl, the little boy at home who might be in Eva's shoes, or, have autism, be on the spectrum. And, to have, someone like Eva be able to have the confidence and courage to tell her story here on the show. I mean, that's, just very inspiring. So shout out to Eva again. Incredible. And then back in the Purple Tribe, Eva thanks everyone for being so supportive. Star props Eva up for being so strong, and opens up about how she has family members on the spectrum as well. This encourages Star to open up even more. And she said she wants to play a clean game, and tells them that she has the beware advantage. But she doesn't have it open yet, as we know. And Eva was determined to figure it out. As they got all the letters, she, switching everything out in the combination, and she opens it, gets the word. The word was silent, and Star says, this is your idol. Eva's like, this is a group idol. And now Eva says, she has a new ally in Star to work together as well. So definitely a really cool moment there. Back at the Orange camp, Bianca has no vote, but she has a plan. So Bianca's plan is basically to pit the two sides against each other. Cedric and Say against Mitch and Chrissy. And then if there's a tie, then obviously, she wouldn't be involved. It would be between the two tribe members who are tied. But Chrissy and Mitch pitched to Cedric about getting rid of Sai. But he says he doesn't think it's time to do that yet. To himself. Doesn't tell them that. They seem to believe that Cedric's going to vote Sai, and Bianca and Cedric talk about this, and basically he says, the end goal is to not work with Sai. But he says he's voting for Chrissy. So now Bianca is like, well, what do I do? What if this blows up in my face? Obviously she doesn't have a vote, so, she could have a lot of explaining and damage control to do afterwards. And Bianca ends up telling Cedric that she doesn't have a vote. So now he could keep this silent or turn this on, Bianca at Tribal Council. And we head to Tribal Council, and obviously the talk is the easy vote would be Bianca. She's the only one not with another tribe member, so it's 2-2-1. But not always that simple, obviously. And we've seen that throughout the day. Obviously, we haven't seen all the conversations, but Mitch brings up seeing in how previous seasons the underdog tribe has done really, really well in this game, talking about the two Green Tribe members in Say and Cedric. So we'll see what happens there, but Cedric doesn't bring anything up about Bianca, but we get the vote in. 1 vote for Say, 1 vote for Chrissy, 2 for Bianca. So it seems like Cedric must have quickly turned this around and made a plan with, Mitch and Chrissy to vote this way to get Bianca out. But I mean, really, for Bianca, yes, her hands were kind of tied a little bit with not having a vote, but I don't know. Does she probably regret telling Cedric? Yes, but it probably something that she felt like she could do, and to try to swing the vote so she didn't have as much, damage control to do after. Because if Cedric just votes for Say, it's, 3, or whatever it is, 3-1. Say, no one else has to know that that Bianca doesn't have a vote. But, obviously if it's 2-2, someone didn't vote, then obviously the numbers, don't add up. So I get why she did it. She obviously probably regrets it, but, that's the game of Survivor. It's, who do you trust? Who do you not trust? And that's what makes the game so incredible. But we get the preview for next week. Drop your buffs. We head to the merge, it seems like, and new bonds forming, chaos going on around camp. And then it looks like Cedric and Chrissy both voted for Bianca. And then Mitch voted for Say. And then Say, obviously, for Chrissy. So that's where we're at. And obviously, as we said at the beginning, very emotional episode, really good episode. Definitely probably the best episode of this season to this point. But yeah, I like where we're at heading into the merge next week, it seems like. So we will be back to talk about it. But anyway, that'll do it for this one. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.